May 18th, 1965. A barefoot man sits in a concrete cell, waiting for the hangman. Outside, in a bustling Damascus square, thousands of people gather to cheer. Parents are handing out sweets to their children. Music is playing. 6 months earlier, this same condemned prisoner sat in the private office of the Syrian president. He drank coffee with generals. He was openly consulted on military strategy. At one point, the Syrian government seriously considered making him their deputy minister of defense. To the crowds celebrating his execution, his name was Kamal Amin Taabet, a wealthy businessman and a fierce Syrian patriot. But his real name was Eli Cohen. He was born in Egypt, he was raised Jewish, and recruited by Israel's Mossad. He walked into the heart of a hostile nation with nothing but a fake name and a trained smile. Over 4 years, he climbed higher into an enemy government than any operative in modern history. The deception ran so deep that the man pulling it off eventually began to forget which version of himself was real. In the early 1960s, Israel operated completely in the dark regarding its deadliest neighbor, Syria. Mossad had almost no reliable information coming from inside the country's borders. They urgently needed an operative who could do more than sneak in, someone who could seamlessly blend into Arab high society. They found their solution in a quiet, frustrated accountant living in a modest apartment south of Tel Aviv. Eli Cohen lived a mundane life and had even been rejected by Mossad in the past. His only real asset was his voice. Having grown up entirely immersed in the culture of his Syrian parents, he spoke Arabic with a flawless native inflection. Mossad spent months systematically dismantling his past. Instructors stripped away his Egyptian mannerisms and middle-class habits, polishing his vocabulary and posture. They engineered a completely new human being from scratch, Kamal Amin Taabet, a confident, wealthy expatriate who had made a fortune in South America and longed to return to his Syrian homeland. Back home, his wife, Nadia, was kept completely in the dark. Eli told her he had accepted a government job purchasing electronics abroad, requiring long stretches away from home. She accepted it, entirely unaware of the performance her husband was rehearsing. Mossad systematically dismantled the family man, stripping away the accountant from Bat Yam until only a human weapon remained. The operation began 6,000 kilometers away from Syria. Eli planted himself in the wealthy expatriate community in Argentina. He spent money freely, passionately praised the Ba'ath political party, and earned real letters of introduction from men who would soon become high-ranking Syrian officials. By 1962, he carried those letters into Damascus. He rented a luxury apartment in the prestigious Abu Rumane district. The location was heavily calculated. Every morning, he could literally look out his window directly overlooking the Syrian Army's General Staff headquarters and monitor their daily military movements. His primary intelligence gathering happened at night. Kamal hosted extravagant parties that powerful generals and government ministers could not resist. He would pretend to drink heavily, stumbling and slurring his words. Believing their host was too drunk to remember anything, Syrian officials loosened their ties and freely discussed classified state secrets. This access led him into the most sensitive military installations in the country. During an exclusive guided tour of the heavily fortified Golan Heights, Eli noticed soldiers suffering under the brutal sun. He made a suggestion that sounded like pure patriotic generosity: plant eucalyptus trees to provide the suffering troops with shade. Look at this 3D topographical map of the plateau. In a barren landscape where nothing tall grows naturally, a cluster of trees stands out like a signal fire. Eli had secretly marked every major Syrian bunker, creating a highly visible target map for the Israeli Air Force. He moved past stealing secrets. Through a trained smile and careful suggestions, he actively shaped Syria's defense strategy to ensure its future destruction. Keeping the mask on required enormous psychological endurance. During his rare trips home to Israel, Nadia noticed the changes. His Egyptian accent was gone, he was heavier, wearing a gold ring, and carried a strange new confidence. She later said it felt as though a stranger was wearing her husband's face. This is the darkest danger of deep cover. Eli was becoming comfortable. He had lived the luxurious life of Kamal for so long that the danger stopped feeling dangerous. The friendships felt real. the boundaries of his true identity were blurring. His cover did not break from a slip of the tongue. It broke from a technological shift. Following a military coup, a suspicious new intelligence chief took over in Damascus, bringing with him advanced Soviet radio detecting equipment specifically designed to hunt unauthorized signals. To catch the spy, Syrian intelligence laid a trap. They ordered periods of absolute radio silence across the entire city. With all official frequencies quiet, any illegal transmission would immediately stand out to the Soviet scanners. On January 18, 1965, Eli sat in his apartment frantically tapping out a routine intelligence update to Tel Aviv. He had no idea the city's airwaves were supposed to be silent. The scanners locked on to his exact location, and before he could finish the message, armed soldiers broke down his door. The arrest sent a shockwave through the Syrian high command. The realization that their most trusted inner circle had been completely compromised was a total, humiliating defeat. The government demanded a spectacular public execution to save face. 2 years after Eli's death, the intelligence he'd gathered was put to the ultimate test. In June 1967, Israel faced the Six-Day War. The stakes were highest on the Golan Heights, a heavily fortified plateau layered with bunkers and trenches overlooking the Israeli border. Syrian commanders believed the wall was impenetrable, but the Israeli Air Force didn't need complex targeting data to find the bunkers. They simply looked through their cockpits for the clusters of eucalyptus trees Eli had suggested planting. Armed with his intimate map of the layered defenses, Israeli forces tore through the landscape. A fortress that Syria believed would hold the line for weeks was completely dismantled in just 48 hours. Israeli leadership would later say this map was worth its weight in gold. A capture that should have taken weeks was over in 2 days because a dead man had already cleared the path. Eli Cohen's mission ended on a May morning in Damascus, but his sacrifice left a permanent scar in a small apartment south of Tel Aviv. In his final hours, he wrote to Nadia, begging her to marry another man so their 3 children would not grow up without a father. Nadia never remarried. Instead, she embarked on an agonizing 60-year crusade to retrieve his remains. To prevent her from ever finding peace, Syrian authorities repeatedly buried and moved his body in the dark, ensuring he never received a proper grave. The tragic irony only deepened decades later, when a covert Mossad operation recovered a cache of Syrian intelligence files. They found a thick folder bearing Nadia's name. Syria had spent decades secretly monitoring her letters, cataloging the widow's grief from afar. Eli Cohen secured the Golan Heights for his country, but in the process, he erased the man his family actually knew. He became a legend that his children would spend the rest of their lives trying to understand.